Today, let us take some time to study the Word of God together in the Bible with the sermon titled Wrong Judgment and Eternal Regret. While we are living our lives in this world, we oftentimes make a wrong decision that will lead us to regret. If a wrong decision is related to a physical matter, it can result in a temporary and transient regret. However, if a wrong decision is related to a spiritual matter, it can result in an eternal regret and linger around us forever and ever, no matter how trivial the decision may be. Through this, we can realize once again that our every action, our every decision, and every word we say is extremely significant. Let us take some time to reflect upon ourselves, to see if the words that we say lightly, the actions we do carelessly, and the indifferent attitudes we have are leading us to eternal regret in the spiritual world in the future. I visited the Busan area with Heavenly Mother last Sabbath day. On our way down to Busan, we saw a sign with a slogan along the roadside. If you fall asleep for a moment, you will regret it for a lifetime. Since drowsiness can leave you with regret for the rest of your life, I think that the sign was posted to warn people to be careful while driving. Seeing that sign along the road, I thought, we can even apply this slogan spiritually. I thought to myself, spiritually, momentary drowsiness can leave us not just with regret for this lifetime, but with an eternal regret. Among those who had regret are Judas Iscariot, King Saul, who was the first king of Israel, and Esau. They made the wrong decision at a crucial moment. From the spiritual perspective, due to a momentary problem, their wrong decision resulted in eternal regret. In the end, they faced such a miserable outcome. Esau could not stand his hunger for a short time and easily sold his birthright to Jacob. He wept bitterly, and throughout his life, he regretted his decision. As a result, Esau had hostile feelings toward Jacob for the rest of his life. Through Esau's example, we can see that not being awake spiritually can cause people to make the wrong decision that leads them to regret forever. Those who are spiritually drowsy behave foolishly. Those who are spiritually drowsy also have different standards. Those who are spiritually drowsy use careless words and have worldly desires. They focus on the physical and earthly things, rather than on the spiritual and the heavenly ones. Drowsiness lasts only for a moment. However, the time of regret will last so much longer. We are graciously following the path of the gospel, which our God is leading us on. Then, shouldn't we walk the path of the gospel so that we will not have any regrets? The path of Christ never leaves us with any regrets. However, if we fail to follow the path of Christ and live the life of Christ, we will come to have many regrets in the future. Today, let's take a look at such scenes in Genesis chapter 25. Let us turn to Genesis chapter 25, verse 27. Chapter 25, verse 27 reads, "The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob." Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." "Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. In a moment, Esau sold his birthright. In the end, he grieved and wept bitterly over this decision. After all of God's blessings for the firstborn went to Jacob, Esau asked his father Isaac, "Did you give Jacob all the blessings that you intended to give to me? If there is even a small blessing left, please give it to me." His father bestowed the blessings of the firstborn on Jacob, the blessings that should have been reserved for Esau, because Esau could not endure the momentary hunger, nor the momentary pain, and sold his birthright. As a result, Esau was very distraught. Esau swore an oath to Jacob, selling his birthright to him. In the Bible, it is recorded that Esau despised his birthright. In the same way, we too may make incorrect judgments, make wrong decisions, and act inappropriately. This can happen to anyone. Each and every one of us faces temporary hardships and difficulties in our lifetime. These are all possible things that can happen to us. However, we must remember that a mistake we make in a moment can lead us to a regret that can last eternally. We must never give up so easily or simply forsake the heavenly inheritance and the glory of heaven that God has granted to us. That is why our words, deeds, and attitudes are all extremely important in the eyes of God. The path we are currently walking is comparable to the journey in the spiritual desert. When we look at the history of the Israelites who lived in the desert 3,500 years ago, we can see many people who lived with regret for the rest of their lives. Momentary hunger, momentary thirst, and the uncomfortable surrounding environment made them complain and caused them to make decisions that led them to regret for the rest of their lives. In the end, their decisions and their lack of judgment led them to destruction in the desert. Let us turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1 says, "For I do not want you to be ignorant of the fact, brothers, that our forefathers were all under the cloud and that they all passed through the sea. They were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. They all ate the same spiritual food and drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank from the spiritual rock that accompanied them, and that rock was Christ. Nevertheless, God was not pleased with most of them. Their bodies were scattered over the desert." Why is it that God was not pleased with the Israelites in the desert and allowed them all to be destroyed there? It was because of their words, faith, and mindset. Since God saw that these people did not have the right attitude of faith that was worthy of inheriting the land of Canaan flowing with milk and honey, He was not pleased with them. The Bible describes God's feeling toward them in this way. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 6 says, "Without faith, it is impossible to please God." even if God led the Israelites to the land of Canaan, since they always complained and grumbled whenever they faced temporary hunger, thirst, and inconveniences in the desert, what would they say about the land of Canaan flowing with milk and honey? Why did you bring us to this place? Those who grumble and complain always find something to complain about, no matter how good their conditions may be. If God allowed them to live comfortably, they would ask, "Why did you lead us to such a boring place?" When they face many hardships and difficulties, they would ask, "Why did you put us through all these difficulties?" When it was comfortable, they grumbled because it was too comfortable. And when there was difficulty, they grumbled because it was too difficult. Since they always lived with the DNA of grumbling, God was not pleased with them, even though there were a great number of them. Let us take a look at the final outcome of those whom God was not pleased with. Verse 5. Nevertheless, God was not pleased with most of them. Their bodies were scattered over the desert. Now these things occurred as examples to keep us from setting our hearts on evil things as they did. Do not be idolaters, as some of them were, as it is written. The people sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in pagan revelry. We should not commit sexual immorality as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 of them died. We should not test the Lord as some of them did, and were killed by snakes. And do not grumble as some of them did, and were killed by the destroying angel. These things happened to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us, on whom the fulfillment of the ages has come. So, if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. All these examples resulted from their wrong thoughts. These came from having a wrong faith. It was because the Spirit of God was not with them. That was why they always made wrong decisions based on worldly judgments. Since we sinned in heaven and were expelled to the earth, the city of refuge, we cannot achieve everything we want on this earth. We need to go to heaven to achieve everything we want. On this earth, we have to endure many inconveniences. Even if you want to live comfortably, this world will never let you live comfortably. There will always be people who persecute you and people who oppose you. I am speaking from a spiritual point of view. In the kingdom of heaven, all of our wishes and desires will be granted. On this earth, there are always many inconveniences. It may be good to have a lot of possessions, but if you have a lot of possessions, robbers would be looking for them. For these people who have valuables in their house, they may always be anxious when they go outside. Once, there was a beggar who had a conversation with his son. A big fire broke out in a large shopping mall, and many people died. The beggar said to his son, "Son, you should know how lucky you are to have me as your father." The beggar's words are not something we can just laugh about. As it is written in the book of 1 Corinthians, all the Israelites who grumbled were destroyed in the desert, and all the Israelites who worshipped idols were also destroyed in the desert. Likewise, the wrong decisions we make while we are walking in the desert of faith will bring us eternal destruction and eternal regret in the end. Today, let us engrave this lesson on our hearts once again. Let us turn to Matthew chapter 25. Chapter 25, verse 1. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. What does the oil represent? It represents faith. Let us continue with verse 5. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. "Sir, sir," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "I tell you the truth, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." In the last days, there are 5 virgins who made the wrong decision, and there are 5 virgins who made the right decision. The 5 foolish virgins made a decision that they would regret forever. They might have thought, it won't be too late to make preparations when the bridegroom comes. However, that was not the case. The oil of our faith must always be full. The oil of our faith must never run out. There are some members who are unaware of the fact that they have run out of their oil of faith, while there are others who know that they have run out of their oil of faith, but think, "I'll prepare it later. I still have a lot of time left." Rather, we should think, it is certain that the bridegroom is coming. How should we welcome him properly? If he comes at night, the virgins have to light a lamp. In order to do that, they have to have enough oil. However, even though they do not have enough oil, they might think, when the bridegroom comes, I'll prepare it then. God says that these people are foolish. The same is true for our spiritual state. What these foolish people did was a momentary mistake. Anything that we fail to prepare for will leave us with eternal regret. Later, no matter how hard they knocked on the door saying, "Please open the door," they could only hear the stern voice of the bridegroom, "I never knew you." We believe that Christ Ahnsahnghong will surely come. We are certain of this. Today, let's think once again about what it means to act foolishly and what it means to act wisely. We must never fall into slumber or become drowsy even for a moment, nor should our faith grow cold. In Matthew chapter 25, Jesus taught his children the wisdom to know the way of being awake so that they would not have any regrets. Let's go to verse 14. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with the 2 talents gained 2 more. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with the 2 talents also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Here, let's take a look at the case of a man who made a wrong decision that he would regret forever. Verse 24. Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you. Let us continue with verse 26. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The one who received the 5 talents and the one who received the 2 talents were able to use their talents to produce many more talents. However, the one who received the 1 talent hid it. Here, what did the master command them to do? He clearly said, put this money to work. When you run a successful business, what will the result be? Profits will follow. With the 5 talents, one gained 5 more. And with the 2 talents, the other gained 2 more. On the other hand, the man with 1 talent hid it deep in the ground. He did not do anything with it. The master even gave them clear instructions on what to do. However, in Matthew chapter 25, God shows us that the one who received 1 talent did not obey the words of the master, and as a result, he had no choice but to regret his decision forever. Everyone, let us take a moment to reflect on ourselves. If God were to come to the earth today, would I be a foolish person or a wise person? Am I being drowsy now that is causing me to do something foolish in this moment and will result in me regretting this decision for the rest of my life? We ought to think about this carefully. Let's take a look at Hebrews chapter 12, verse 14. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 14 reads, make every effort to live in peace with all men and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one misses the grace of God and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. See that no one is sexually immoral or is godless like Esau, who, for a single meal, sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. Afterward, as you know, when he wanted to inherit this blessing, he was rejected. He could bring about no change of mind, though he sought the blessing with tears. Here in these verses, the Bible says, see to it that no one misses the grace of God. God told us to look around us. We should check if we are avoiding a path simply because it is a little inconvenient. Everyone, in our daily life, we can see many times people regret for the rest of their lives because of their momentary drowsiness. However, spiritual things do not last just for the rest of our lives. They are eternal. Since we may face miserable outcomes in the future forever and ever, we must always pay attention to the words of the Bible. Since God told us not to be like Esau, we must not allow things to happen that we will regret. A bowl of lentil soup may satisfy our hunger for a moment. However, how foolish would it be to give up the eternal glory in the kingdom of heaven and choose a way to satisfy our temporary hunger on this earth for such a short period of time? Doesn't God have the power to give us all this eternal glory? God can give us everything. I've told you many times that God sometimes humbles us, causing us to hunger, as it is written in Deuteronomy chapter 8. In these situations, God always tests our hearts and examines how firm our faith is and how abundantly we have prepared our spiritual oil of faith. We must all have the wisdom to see the whole world with faith, no matter what the situation is. In the Bible, there is not only the story of the regret of Esau, but also the regret of Judas Iscariot and the regret of King Saul. After they had made the wrong judgment in a brief moment, they regretted their decisions for the rest of their lives. That is why the Bible teaches us in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, do not be like them. God constantly awakens us to this teaching. 2,000 years ago, the apostles and the forefathers of faith were stoned, were burned, and became food for lions. They were in many difficult circumstances while preaching the gospel. However, they never gave up on their faith in God or gave up on the gospel. It was because they believed that there would be great glory in the kingdom of heaven. Living with such faith, their life was uncomfortable because they did not have much, but it did not feel like an inconvenience to them. There was an eternal glory that they would receive in a little while. The fact that we have less possessions or live in a small house is not something that we should feel ashamed of. As the royal priesthood, there is a glorious crown that is reserved for us in the kingdom of heaven, which God will grant to us. We should have this kind of faith. For this reason, the apostles and the forefathers of faith did not give up even when they were faced with a situation where they could have given up. Through the Bible, we know well that they worked earnestly with the hope to change this earth, the city of refuge, into the world of God, and led the world to repentance by preaching the gospel boldly in Samaria and even to the ends of the earth. Let's take a look at one more verse in Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 33. Who, through faith, conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured and refused to be released, so that they might gain a better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, while still others were chained and put in prison. They were stoned, they were sawed in two, they were put to death by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. What would be their end result? The splendid heavenly crown and the tremendous rewards from heaven would be given to them. Aren't they living in such comfort and blessings that even the angels cannot describe with words? There were many inconveniences that they experienced on the earth. To live the life of Christ They often had to give up all the pleasures of this earth and joys of this world. However, they did not live for the pleasures of this earth, because they only looked forward to the glory that would be granted in the kingdom of heaven. Even though they were flogged, were chained, and were put in prison, they never complained by saying, "These hardships and trials are difficult and painful." What they saw was the glory of the kingdom of heaven. However, the people like Judas Iscariot, King Saul, and Esau looked forward only to the glory of this earth. Let us examine ourselves if we are walking the path of faith, looking to heaven, or if we are walking the path of faith, looking at the life on this earth. I hope that we will never let go of the eternal kingdom of heaven and the way of eternal life which Father and Mother are leading us on. By this, I would like to conclude today's sermon. Thank you very much.